there are musicians and then there are people that just change the way you remember things. And, you know, I got to tell this story the best way I know how. As a young teenager, in the 80s, um, the funny thing is, this was my father's favorite funk artist, is Sly Stone. And I didn't really, played a lot of his music. Um, Growing up per se. I heard bits here and there, Family Fair, stuff like that. But I really wasn't into the outline of him. And, I know Michael Jackson had bought his catalog, but the radio at the time was playing all the hits that was happening in the streets and stuff like that. So he wasn't getting a lot of, and the funny thing about him, as influential as he is, and he's hugely influential, and I still say Sly and the Family Stone is the greatest band that America ever produced because he broke down racial barriers musically, men, women playing, etc., etc., and the impact of what he represented as a DJ, as a connoisseur. And he was one of one. Even though he came from the Ray Charles School of Music, he was one of one. However, let me get to the story. Obviously, Prince and the Revolution was big in the early 80s, and Michael Jackson was big, and Rick James was big. They were definitely three people that were templates of what he did, amongst others. But it was, ironically, a bus trip. Union Bridge, it was in Maryland. And it was the late spring of 86. I was a teenager, and I bought this greatest hits tape from the local mall when you used to do those things, Sly and the Family Stone. And I Want to Take You Higher, and obviously I'd seen Prince and the Revolution doing America, and I'd seen all the nod and everything, but there's a ride going on, which I'll come to in a little bit. But when I sat there and listened to it, the songs just knocked me off my feet because all the beats sounded different, his vibe, and I was like, this is where Prince got that from. That's how Rick James and Michael Jackson and so many others, and then thinking about Earth, Wind and Fire, Maurice White said the impact of what he represented. And I said the owl and the vibe and Ohio players and so on. So it just hit you like a ton of bricks. Barcades, Cameo, Confunction, a lot of these acts. And then, he was my father's favorite funketeer too. That was told to me. And I went back. I remember getting There's a Ride going on. And I remember that album cover was banned because you couldn't put the flag on the album cover. Yeah. You think some places now are heavy censored. That was controversial. He went from that accessible, feel good, came out of the, civil rights movement to speaking his mind. Around the same time, obviously, when Shaft was big with Isaac Hayes and Marvin Gaye, what's going on, and with Curtis Mayfield. A lot of that people kind of downplay. His